In the fourth quarter, we're going to be studying circles. There's only going to be 2 chapters covered in the fourth quarter due to all of these changes that we're experiencing right now. And the first chapter that we're going to cover is chapter 11. And chapter 11 is about circles and angles within circles. So this first section is actually just about the vocabulary and some of the new shapes that we're going to be talking about within the circle. They're not really new shapes, they just are specific to circles themselves. Okay, so let's get the vocabulary down first. And the first term here is just what a circle is. A circle is really the set of all points that are in the plane, so they're in a flat surface, and they're a fixed distance, so they're equidistant from a point. So the point is called the center. So over here, the P is just the center of the circle. Now, when you name a circle, we use the symbol that looks like a circle and it has a dot in the middle, and then we just put the letter that goes with the center point. So that would be called circle P. Okay, well, that's really all there is to a circle, what it is, and how to name it, the symbol used for it in geometry, and also what the center of a circle is. The next vocabulary word is radius. And a radius can be either a distance from the center of a circle to a point on the circle, or it can be a segment from the center of a circle to a point on the circle. And when we name a radius, typically we're naming the segment itself. So the radius here that we see in red over there would be the segment AB. So this is a radius. Now, if 2 circles have the same radius, or the same length of radius, then they're called congruent circles. So congruent circles are circles the same size, just like we expect. And that's what a radius is. Again, we've known what a radius was even before this. The next vocabulary word that we're going to talk about is a chord. Now, a chord must be a segment, so that's mandatory. It has to be a segment. And a chord has to have both of its endpoints on the circle itself. So the red shape we see over here is what a chord would look like. And when we name a chord, we have to name it with the segment symbol. So we would put C, D, and we put a segment symbol on the top. And chords may not be new to you. It depends upon your earlier math classes, but it's something that's new to us in geometry. We haven't seen it yet in geometry. Okay, the next one. The next one's one you've probably seen before. The next one is diameter. And a diameter, like a radius, can be either a distance or it could be a segment. And that segment would then be a chord. So a diameter can actually be thought of as a special chord. It would be a chord that has to pass through the center of the circle. So although a diameter is a chord, it's more specific to call it a diameter. So if I was naming the diameter there, I would usually be naming it as the segment from E to F. And again, although it is a chord because it has its endpoints on the circle, the most specific name we would use is diameter. Now this next one, I'm pretty sure will be new to you. It's a secant. A secant has to be a line. So we must name secants with a line symbol. It's a line that intersects a circle in 2 points, or in other words, it's a line that would contain in it a chord. And remember that through any 2 points, there's always going to be a line, even if it isn't drawn. So if you look at our diagram over here, there would be another secant that would go through G and K, just like this. Now that one isn't there, so I'm going to take that off so it doesn't clutter up the diagram. But there would be one that we could draw there. So a secant must be a line. So I could name that secant that we see right here GH, and I would have to put the line symbol on the top. I could name another secant, KM, would also be a secant. So even if they don't draw it continuing through, we can still name it as a secant because we know there is in fact a line there. Next vocabulary word. Next vocabulary word is tangent. And a tangent can be a line or a ray or a segment, but it has to intersect the circle at exactly one point. So every one of these is a tangent. And that point where it intersects the circle, that's called the point of tangency. So the P right here would be the point of tangency. Now, the first thing you're going to have to be able to do is to pick out and name these particular shapes or figures in a diagram. A central angle. A central angle we talked about back when we did areas of regular polygons. A central angle is an angle of a circle where the vertex is in the center of the circle. So if I was naming the central angle in this circle, the central angle would be this one right here. I would have to name it as angle YXW. Notice we have to use the angle symbol. An inscribed angle. An inscribed angle is an angle whose vertex is on the circle. So this would be an inscribed angle right here. If I name that inscribed angle, I would name it angle PQN. So central angles have their vertex at the center of the circle. Inscribed angles have their angles on the circle itself. The last vocabulary word or term we're going to talk about is arcs. And there actually are three different types of arcs. An arc is a portion of the edge of the circle itself. So it's actually a curve. And that's the arc symbol. There are three kinds of arcs. The first kind of arc is called a minor arc. A minor arc is less than 180, and it's named with two letters. So this would be a minor arc. Again, it has to be less than 180 degrees, and it's named with two letters. And the arc symbol. A major arc, on the other hand, a major arc is greater than 180, and it's named with three letters. So this would be a major arc. So it is more than 180 degrees, which is half of a circle. And it's named with three letters. I said there were 3 types of arcs. The third type of arc is a semicircle. A semicircle is exactly 180 degrees. Half of a circle. It is also named with 3 letters. Now, let's take a look at how you're going to be assessed on this. So, here we have a diagram, and we have all the vocabulary words we just talked about. The center of the circle is just going to be a point. It's going to be the point K. A radius. Now, when they ask you to name a radius, usually what they really want is you to name the segment. Well, there are several of them that we could use. This one, for instance, would be a radius. So we could call it, oh, sorry about that. So we could call it KL, that segment. Or we could call it KI, that would be another one. Or KJ. All of those would work. Now, of course, you only have to name one. A chord. Now, a chord has to be a segment with endpoints on the circle. So the one I just highlighted there would likely be our best choice for a chord. So it would be JL. Now, there's a second one that we could have used as a chord. It would be HI. And it almost appears that there would be a third one, which would be JI. But JI has a better name. In fact, JI is what we would use for this next one. JI would actually be a diameter. And you can only use 2 letters. A secant. Now, a secant must be a line, because that's what a secant's defined to be. We don't see one in our diagram, but we could name one. We could call the line GI, and we put the line symbol. Named as a line. We could also use JI, would also be one, with a line symbol. A tangent. Now, a tangent can only touch the circle at one point, so I could call it G to J, or G to J. And usually they want a line when they're asking for just a tangent, unless they ask for a tangent segment or a tangent ray. A minor arc. Now, a minor arc has to be less than half of a circle. So I could use J to L, and I have to put the arc symbol over the top. Or I could say L to I. Or I could say H to I. Or I could say J to H. Any one of those would work. A major arc has to be more than 180 degrees, whereas the one we just did had to be less than. So for my major arc, I could say H to J to I, or J to L to H. And there's more. a central angle. A central angle has to have its vertex at the center of the circle. So I could use angle JKL or angle LKI. Those would work fine. An inscribed angle. Now, an inscribed angle has to have its vertex on the circle itself. So I could say angle IJL, or I could say angle GIJ, or I could say angle JLK. And all of those would work. So that's the vocabulary with circles. That's section 11.1, and that's what your first assessment will essentially be.